Well, hello there, humans, hippies, earthlings, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and whoever you are, lucky enough to be doing it too. I'm Bushcon Blitz, and I'm very happy to be bringing you a little bit of a different video today. Today is going to be basically a video aimed at answering the questions for all of you guys who are starting off in the game or have been playing for a while, and you're looking at going all the way up to a tier 10 tank. And it's going to be a new series of videos I'm doing called Know Your Nasties. Now today the nasties we're going to be looking at is tier 10 tank destroyers. Now the reason this is a little bit different is because I'm going to break down each one very quickly in rambling fashion. Very quickly, but very, very rambling. Right from the Grill 15 all the way through to the Object 263, or the YOLO wagon as I affectionately call it. And we're going to be talking about what kind of playstyles you can expect from those tanks, what they do well, what they don't do well, and where they sit within the pantheon of TDs at that tier. And I think this is something that is obviously really needed out there, because I get so many questions like, should I buy the Jagdpanzer E100 or the T110E3? Should I get the Object 140 or the T62A? Is the Jumbo a good tank, or do I need to get the M4 Easy 8? All these kind of things. And they're legitimate questions and they're valid. But I can't answer them all the time in individual videos. Some of them I'm going to try. So today, we're going to be giving you broad strokes appeal on TDs, and I'm going to bust them down with a few bits of gameplay and a few bits of excerpts from games, and see if I can't go a long way towards answering the questions that you're getting right at the start. And I also want to have this as a tool for guys who are just kicking off the game, who are deciding they want to go down the TD route, and they want to know what kind of tank destroyer they're going to get, what they're going to end up with at the end of a whole lot of grind and work. And I think that's a good video, so we're going to see how that goes. This is also a patron-sponsored post. I hate harping on about this, but this is basically how I keep the lights on here at home, and how I keep juice pumping to the brand new MacBook Pro I picked up. And I hope you're enjoying the video effects. So if you'd consider sponsoring the channel, there is a link there. If not, it's not incumbent on you to do so. The only reason we are rolling still is there are a bunch of people that do this. They're the patrons, and you can see them here. This is the footage I shot to try and get an intro, and I did end up pulling the intro from this clip. I don't know if you noticed it. It's the clip that I used a little bit earlier. But these are the guys who jumped in the channel for me and did a whole heap of stuff. So without further ado, let's get bumping, thumping, and jumping as we have a look at our first cab off the rank, the Grill 15, the George Foreman Grill, or the Grill A15 if you actually want to pronounce it correctly, but I don't know, get stuffed. Here you go. So let's, love ya. Here's the Grill 15, or the Grill A15. This is a TD for experienced players, and I want to start off by saying that it has the highest potential at times for doing good for your team, but it's also a TD that is incredibly easy and fragile if you're looking at taking it out. It's got the best gun in its tier, basically. It's a laser beam. It has a 150mm gun. Now, nearly all these tanks have around a 150 as a baseline. There's one that's slightly under, and there's a couple that are slightly over, or largely over. That being the Jagdpanzer and the Death Star. This is not a tank for the faint-hearted. You can see there I've used the mobility to get up, and I've pumped 2 shots into that other grill with high explosive, penned him both times, and stone cold killed him. That's 2 shots for 1800 damage. So you can see what I'm talking about, and you can also see there the gun working overtime. It's the fastest TD in its tier. So if you're an experienced player, you've gone up some other lines like a heavy line or a medium line or a light tank line, because that is really what you're playing. You're playing a light tank TD. If you've gone up those other kind of lines, then you may well be able to utilize what the grill brings to the table. Not the least of which is a very, very mobile chassis and a turret, which means you can turn it all over the joint. Now, it doesn't go a 360 degrees. It does go left to right in a decent gun arc, and it allows you to set shots up. And you're going to see that with all the tanks that have turrets in this line. It makes life a lot easier when you're trying to set shots up. And being able to move at 60 kilometers an hour like this means you can go out and get wrecked very easily, or do the wrecking yourself, depending on both your skill set and the skill set and abilities of the enemy. So let's just recap with the grill. Very, very quick. Very, very lethal gun handling, very, very fragile. Excellent camouflage as well. And you can see I'm running it there with a camo net, binoculars, and a gun rammer. You cannot run vents on this because it is an open-topped vehicle. Much like the Object 263, if you've got an open-top vehicle, you can't run improved ventilation, which stands to reason. And there you go. Again, you can see that gun working absolute wonders. We're going to move on now to the T110E4. Now, this thing is a little bit miscast as a tank destroyer. If you've watched my review on it, I believe it really is just about my favorite heavy at tier 10. It's a big turreted, very strongly armored for a heavy tank and fairly strongly armored for a tank destroyer, American TD. It's reasonably mobile. If you were to compare it to one tank, I'd probably compare it not to the T110E3, which it looks quite a bit like. I'd compare it to the E100. It's got very similar statistics, but it does actually beat the E100 in a couple of key categories. It is, in fact, a little bit more mobile than that. So it's got reasonable armor and a turret. Now, the turret is the key. What's so good about turrets on these 150mm toting guns is it allows you to set shots up really quickly. You're going to see I'm going to turn the turret over my right drive wheel, hit the shot and pull back. That's something you can't really do in a non-turreted TD. So if you're looking for a tank that's got a good armor profile, is very, very much a utility vehicle, it can play the role of a heavy tank or a TD pretty equally, and something that still packs a massive 150mm gun, then this may well be the one for you. The weak spot on top is pretty big though, so be careful when you're rolling it and being aggressive in it. You don't want to do it unless you have enough hit points to get through the enemy, because they can pen you on the top of that hatch you can see right there at the back. It's got decent gun depression, very nice penetration numbers, and as all 150mm guns, has a 640 alpha damage roll. Now, all these guys have big HE rolls, and you're going to see throughout the course of the video that I am actually going to do a lot of HE firing and hitting tanks like the Waffle Tractor, the Grill, the Leopard 1, parts of the STB, some of the sides of the German tanks, etc., are very, very prone to HE. And it's no more evident than when you're driving something like this beastie, the Jagdpanzer E100. For so long, this thing was the absolute dinosaur of Blitz. It was the biggest damage dealing daddy on the field, and it gets more ammo racks than I've had hot dinners. It runs a 170mm pack gun, and that is an absolute monster, and has 420mm of pen on its high explosive anti-tank shell, which is 121mm more than its standard AP round at 299. And you're going to see a big old ammo rack here on that poor old IS-7. That gives you a huge big alpha jump. Your average damage on your alpha is 800, and you can roll up to 900, which is very, very nice to get. And your HE can smack for well over 1,000 at 1,200. Where it falls down is mobility. It is incredibly poor, has horrible camouflage. The gun handling is iffy at times, although it's adequate and it's right in line with most of the bigger tier 10 heavy tanks with big alpha damage. It does struggle a lot because of its size. If you get spotted and you're in an open area, you can't get a much bigger target than the size of a Jagdpanzer E100. And because it is obviously a non-turreted TD and it's very slow and very, very heavy, it is easy for fast, medium tanks and to a degree certain heavy tanks to get around its tracks and really do the business and circle of death it. And that's a tough old gig, but that's part and parcel of being in a non-turreted TD, guys. And if you aren't hip to that, then you should probably not be driving up a non-turreted TD line. What you're going to find with this thing, and I don't mean this in a derogatory fashion at all, because I loved this tank, I had a really, really good time driving it, is it's very much a lot more of a subtle drive than you'd expect. It is excellent in terms of armor. If you had to pick a tank at this tier for its armor profile, while there are certainly tanks that have troll armor profiles, like the Object 263 and the Object 268 to a degree as well, the Jagdpanzer E100 is probably the best side scraper out of the entire lot. In fact, it's not even up for debate. It is the best side scraper in Tier 10 TDs. So if you've been driving those big heavies that you like to side scrape and peekaboo with, then maybe something like the Jagdpanzer E100 is going to be your cup of tea. Now this little number here is the Object 268. It has a couple of things going for it, namely amazing camouflage. It is a very, very hard to spot tank once it gets its head down. It's also got quite a trollish armor profile. Although it doesn't always bounce the shots you need, it will quite often bounce shots it's got no business bouncing. And it's very, very nimble. For its size and the fact that it carries around a 640 Alpha gun, a 150mm, it's a hell of a thing. It's got 303mm of pen on its AP rounds, which is simply chaotic for the poor old enemy. And the mobility coupled with that gives it a fantastic assault tank feel. You can snipe with it, but the gun's not superb for it. Certainly not in the class of, say, the Object 263 or the Grill 15. But what it does bring to the table is an ability to get out and run and bring a massive dose of alpha to the face of the enemy. And that's an important thing. When you're out and about supporting mediums and running the flanks, if you're looking for a mobile tank that still has a little bit of armor and the ability to absolutely belt things, and you're going to see we get a little bounce here from the PTA, then the Object 268 is more than likely going to suit. Much like the E4, it's a little bit of a utility tank. It gets out there, it's fast, but it's not the fastest. It's got excellent alpha damage and excellent pen on its AP rounds. And it's certainly able to stay low to the ground and use what is an excellent camouflage scheme to do well. But it's still very, very subject to getting COD'd by medium tanks, and it's certainly not got the best gun handling in the world. If you pair it up with another tank like this Object 263 that are both pretty aggressive and wild, and you do the big boom and then the 263 brings the DPM, you can have a great old time. Which brings us to our next wee monster, the T110E3. Now, I've got a big soft spot for the American muscle car of tanks. Basically, this was my first ever TD, and I drove 1,000 plus games in this monster. And while the Jagdpanzer E100 has a fantastic side-scraping armor profile, and the Object 263 has the most troll armor profile going around, this is the bully boy. If you're looking for a tank that can just intimidate and roll forward and get bounces in really close proximity, I know the 263 can do it, but I still prefer the T110E3 for that. A lot of people say that this thing has gone the way of the dodo, but I don't believe it at all. I've played quite a few games in it of late, just getting back to my comfort zone, and you'll see I'm angling there. All these tanks really respond well to angling for the most part, and I like it. Another 150mm gun, not particularly mobile, very, very subject to poor bouts of medium tank viruses. If you're in a situation where the T110E3 has to deal with more than one target on different axes, you're in real strife. And it's one of the reasons why, and there you go, HE again, 952 into the top of a grill. Gotta love it. Another ammo rack coming with a big 150mm gun. 150s, 170s, and 183mm guns absolutely shred ammo racks, just in case you were wondering. And you can see here, I drive it incredibly aggressive. It's how I've always driven the tank, and it was my first Tier X to ever get to 60% for me, because it's just such a beast. If you're aggressive with it and don't treat it like a little China doll, it can do some amazing things. You can see I'm hull down with it here. I'm always angling, I'm moving it around, and I'm driving forward. So in summary, strong frontal armor profile with a weak hatch on top, but you can hopefully minimize that by constant movement. Big alpha gun, not particularly accurate, and very, very weak against single mediums if caught in the open. But again, all these tanks tend to have very good penetration numbers and very, very good boom sticks. That's the nature of the TD. And check this HE shot out on the poor old Leopard 1. And this is why you roll a lot of HE at this tier. Another big dose. Very hard not to love a little bit of that. So we're going to talk about big doses, and it wouldn't be talking about big doses without this thing, the Death Star. The Death Star has very, 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 very little going for it, apart from what is quite possibly the most gargantuan cannon ever to grace a mobile game. The reason it's called the Death Star is because in the Star Wars movie, the Death Star was the thing that blows up planets. And this thing, quite honestly, has a weapon not unlike the Death Star. The 183 is so named because its gun is a 183mm weapon, the L4. Very, very slow rate of fire, very, very bad armor, really average mobility. It's reasonably okay in terms of mobility, but it's not going to save you too often. Very poor gun handling, but a lot of damage. You've got 310 millimeters on your armor piercing shells, which gives you an average roll of 930 alpha. Your high explosive squash head will give you 1300 average alpha. That's the most in the game. And you can see there, that's an E100, the big, dirty heavy from the German line, Hitler's Derposaurus. If you need to finish a tank off and they're on a reasonably low hit point pool, anything under about 900, this is the tank to do it. It works best resetting camo and such. So I'm just going to recap. Have a look at what I do. I nearly one-shot this poor old Object 704. That's brutal, and that's exactly what this tank brings to the table. It is a gargantuan beast that does damage and very, very little else. So if that's what you're after in a tank, if you're looking for a tank that you can just go and derp with from the back or from the front or from wherever you are and kill stuff with high explosive shells even when you can't pen it, this is the tank for you. Now finally, we're going to talk about the Object 263, or the tank that I call the YOLO wagon. This tank is an absolute beast. If I had to pick one tank to be idiot-proof, this is kind of it. It's got an amazingly good damage per minute number, well in excess of 3,000, second only to the YAG Tiger, and I believe the SU-122-54, the Tier 9 variant of this tank. 460 alpha on your shells, but you're firing them off at a tremendous rate. You've got a 130mm gun, and you've got fair pen and all that, but what you've really got is fantastic damage, incredible mobility. The thing gets out there like a bat out of hell. 55 kilometers an hour will get you second top speed in the Tier 10 TD range, and its armor profile is troll as hell. It's got spaced armor across the top, either side of the gun mantlet, and really fiercely sloped armor on all other sides. And just for a bit of fun, I decided I'd finish the day off by showing you why I call this the YOLO wagon. I've seen a target over here, an E100. I know I can basically burn down everything and still get bounces. And you can see me angling this thing and moving away. I am so aggressive in this tank, beyond the pale aggressive. You're going to see here, their whole team is going to come at me, and I'm not going to take a backward step. While you are flinging this thing around, and once you learn how to do this, it is absolutely hilarious. You fire a whole lot of leather. It's like a boxer who's just throwing punches in bunches, wiggling, angling. It can't run vents because obviously it is an open-topped tank, but it has incredible rate of fire. I run it generally with a gun rammer, a camo net, and binoculars. And the YOLO wagon just does the business. You can see it's intimidating. It never stops. You keep jiggling it at the front and you ruin their day. And you still keep putting damage in regardless. You just never really stop doing damage. You can see here, this guy's going to come down. I'm tracked again because I've wiggled a shot again, and I kill him. That's the YOLO wagon. It's probably the strongest in pure terms of all-round TDs right now. It's one of the strongest vehicles at Tier 10. By the time you get there, I can't be sure that it's not going to be nerfed, but it's possible. Huge damage. Excuse me, huge damage, excellent mobility, very, very good gun handling. You've got a gun that has 0.29 dispersion after you put all your gear on it, i.e. your rations and your perks and the like. So that's a hell of a tank too, and very, very quick, but definitely not with Alpha. If you're looking for big, huge bugger off Alpha, the 183 is the leader, and then the Jagdpanzer 100, and then all the other 150mm guns, which run in at 640 damage. So there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope that that is helpful for you if you are starting up a new line. I really enjoyed making it. You're wonderful. As always, if you consider sponsoring the channel, Patreon, that would be wonderful. If not, I hope you just keep turning up, enjoying the videos, liking the videos, talking on the videos, and tell your friends about it. Tell your family. Come along and save. I'm Bushcon Blitz. Lock and load and stay safe on the battlefield.